Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does on this Thursday night from TheRinger.com is Kevin O'Connor, a.k.a. Kevin O'Bomber, Kevin O'Concert, Kevin O'Camera, Kevin O'Climber, Kevin O'Conflict, Kevin O'Candyland. Kevin!
Verno! How are you doing tonight, man? What's going on?
Doing well. We have just got done watching the end of the Lakers as they go down 3-0 to the Denver Nuggets. Could they play the Nuggets 100 times and lose 100 straight times? It's something we will never know, but we do know that over the last 2 years, they have been unsuccessful every time they have attempted to beat the Denver Nuggets. And this one was probably the worst one, just in the sense of the finality of it all, that if you wanted to hold on to a shred of hope, if you're a Lakers fan, it's that, hey, got beat on the last shot of the game by Jamal Murray, did a lot of great things. We're up 20 through, in the third quarter on this team. We know we can do it. We showed signs we could do it. We just can't fall into what we fell into in the fourth quarter and then get our hearts ripped out by a game winner. But then they turn around, get up 10 after the first quarter, and then run out like the rest of the way. By halftime, it's tie game. Second half feels kind of elementary. Like you never really felt like the Lakers were going to be able to take control of that game. And yet you certainly felt like Denver was never losing control of that game. And obviously they come away with another win. And here we are.
I don't really think there's anything the Lakers could have done in this series. The Nuggets are just on another level. You can point to Darvin Ham in the third quarter being too slow to call timeouts when that Nuggets run began. You can point to D'Lo 0 for 7, taking the 3 as LeBron was coming to the ball down 9 or 10 points in the fourth quarter. You can point to the shoddy bench production and Rui underwhelming and all that. Ultimately, the Nuggets are just on another level from the Lakers and every other team in the Western Conference, with Jokic as the best player in the world. Aaron Gordon tonight was absolutely sensational, amazing, at getting everything he wanted at the rim, all those easy shots. Michael Porter Jr., 20 points, flamethrower jumper. And these young guys just outperforming the Lakers veterans that are in the rotation. The Nuggets are just on another level.
Is it fair for me to ask for my apology for you lecturing me over how awesome D'Angelo Russell is earlier in the year and how I just didn't get it? Tonight would be a good night because he had 0.
I mean, I think we talked about, I might be misremembering, but I think we talked about how mid-year D'Lo got an increase in usage and how perhaps he was showing improvement as a player, but I don't recall early in the year.
And then I said, I've seen him in the playoffs.
I recall mid-year doing that, but
right.
not early in the year.
And mid-year. And I said, I've seen this in the playoffs.
And he also, had an amazing game too in the first half. But other than that, he stunk in game 1, 6 for 20. He was a 0 in the second half of game 2, and he was terrible tonight. The Lakers this offseason, if they keep LeBron James and if they keep Anthony Davis, they need to upgrade on D'Lo. They need to upgrade on the forward spot between Rui, who was solid, and Taurean Prince, and they need to upgrade their head coach. All three of those things need to be upgraded if they keep LeBron and if they keep AD.
Is LeBron just completely immune, no matter what, from ever taking any blame? Because we do this every year. It is his coach. It is his supporting cast. Every year. The guy's got beat 11 Chris, straight times by the same team, bro.
But 39 years old.
I got it.
Game 1, 27 points on 16 shots. Game 2, 26 points on 19 shots. Game 3, 26 points on 20 shots. He's 39 years old, and yet he's still oftentimes behind AD, the most impactful defender on the team, active in passing lanes, coming in for weak side blocks. LeBron at 39 years old, it's hard for me to blame him when he's still doing so much at a high level? To me, it's about everything on this roster collectively. Part of that is what we've seen aside from the 2020 year, that the LeBron AD duo as a star duo has underwhelmed offensively. They've been in the bottom 10 offensive ratings during regular seasons. They do have some limitations together. But ultimately, though, I have a hard time blaming a 39-year-old guy who's still one of the 10 best players in basketball. Personally, that's the way I fall. I think there are past years you could blame LeBron more. But this year, I mean, look, dude, the supporting cast is just not what was expected.
I'm saying when we do that every year. We come into the year, we say their supporting cast is great. Everybody sucks up to them for their offseason. Did it again this year. Oh, Christian Wood. Oh, Cam Reddish. Ooh, Gabe Vincent. That was smart. Austin Reeves, can't trade him for a superstar. D'Angelo Russell. Hey, you know what? They shouldn't be moving him at the trade deadline. Have you watched him? They need to keep him. Rui Hachimura, look, grown into his own. See what he did in the playoffs last year? And so I'm just trying to square it, right? Like every year, we talk up their supporting cast, and then we get to the end, and it's just not what we expected it to be. Their coach is not what you expect him to be. I mean,
Ham. Can we agree on Darvin Ham at least?
No, for sure, right? But I'm saying, like, there is something about
5 to 10 worst coaches, or probably one of the worst coaches in basketball, one of the 2 to 3 worst.
Is it fair for me to say, right? Again, I know no criticism of LeBron James is ever valid, but I watched the superstar that makes his whole team better on one side. I watched Jokic just do that. The whole friggin' starting lineup had 20 points besides Caldwell Pope, right? Like, it's just all bouncing around. It's going everywhere. And it's like, okay, this is what we ask of the other side as well.
Prime. He's also in his prime. And Jokic, as we've talked about for 2 years now, has an incredible supporting cast that fits at a very, very high level.
This is my point. Is it fair to say that the team should not be built around the guy anymore?
Okay, if you asked that question in the first place, I would have answered it right away.
Well, that's fair. That's what we're talking about.
That is a completely fair question.
I didn't say the guy's a bum. I'm saying, like, look, here's the best player on the team, or the one that obviously
let's get
everything
to that question.
Circles around.
Let's get to that question. I think it's a completely fair question, because with LeBron James, he's 39 years old, and he's being asked to do all these things when he's 39. Look, I think for the Lakers, if they do keep LeBron, they have to find somebody who can help him in terms of shot creation in ways that are reliable and consistent, which D'Lo can't. Reeves can help, but maybe he's a little premature after his playoff run last year. Might be too premature to ever expect it from him. AD is a finisher, not a creator. I think they should have gone to AD with post touches more often. He was highly efficient with the post this year. I would have liked to see more of that in the playoffs and even during the season. But ultimately, LeBron needs more perimeter creation help. That's what could allow LeBron to ease into this late 30s and soon to be 40-year-old phase that we've talked about in the past. Like, oh, is he going to be a post guy? Is he going to be a screener? Well, we can't see that when he's playing with just some of the guys that he is now. So I hope if the Lakers keep LeBron, whether it's, Mitchell or Trae Young or whoever it might be, that can help LeBron fit. But then the fundamental question is, from the Lakers side of things, is it worth investing all that into that player if you don't feel you're anywhere near the level of the Denver Nuggets anyway? And maybe you're better off going in a different direction.
The other thing is, do you ever see a time when it's not going to be the LeBron team? Like, he's not A1. That's
will he accept it?
Yeah. Is he ever going to be A1? Because, look, LeBron James is one of the greatest players to ever play this game. There's no question about that. He is still an outstanding player at this age. But having a team that revolves around him, right? Like, that LeBron, that one was driving to the basket, and he's going to punch on your head if you got in the way. And if not, he's throwing out to a three-point shooter who's wide open. That's not the case anymore. You're guarding him with one. It doesn't always, you don't have to bring double teams. You don't have to show him two guys every time.
Slower.
Yeah,
slower now.
Well, and he's also not going to go to the rim.
Yeah,
all
he's
the
not
time.
as explosive unless he has space.
He's
No,
gonna
LeBron isn't in his prime. He's just not. And I think that's
and so
where
now, for years, LeBron and 4 guys standing around was great. Just like it is with Luka now, right?
yes.
Even though it can be coached against. But no longer can it be LeBron and 4 guys standing around. That can't work. How many times do you see 4 pass possessions? And I get it. I just think the Lakers still function like they've got 30-year-old LeBron. And whether that's him, whether that's the coach, take your pick.
Sure.
But they still function like they've got the guy that is in his prime, right? Like Jokic is a superstar in his prime. That's all I'm saying.
Do you want to talk tonight about where LeBron should want to go if he leaves, or do you want to save that for Monday?
No.
Want to save that for Fun Day? Save it for next week.
Well, you told me earlier in the season the Laker fans in your lives were done with it anyway.
Yeah, a lot of the Lakers fans that I know are ready to move on. Yeah. Yep. Many of them. Pretty much all of them. which is interesting.
Look, it's been a disappointment.
It has. I mean, you get one title, but
but unfortunately, we were all housebound.
Yeah, there wasn't even a parade.
There wasn't the juice. There wasn't the fans, and people didn't get to enjoy that. Like, just still a weird,
totally different. Yeah. And overwhelmingly, people feel it's been a disappointment. And I think for the Lakers, if you're Jeannie Buss, Rob Pelinka, the decision makers, the whole Buss family, you do have to think about what's better for you moving forward. Is it continuing to go all in on a guy who's going to be 40 in December? Or is it about finding the right home for him if it's an opt-in and trade, or letting him walk entirely? And then you have a clean slate with your draft picks coming up. And then you can build this thing out either with or without AD. You can trade him still, especially after this season. Anthony Davis's value is going to be at its peak because he was awesome this year.
Awesome. He was great. He was great tonight for the most part. And then, of course, they couldn't get him the ball in the fourth.
100%. Exactly. So it's like if you're the Lakers, I do really think, like I said, I know we'll talk about this next week, but I just want to say this. You should think about that path. Is it better for you to let LeBron go and trade Anthony Davis and go into like not a rebuild, not a blow it up, but okay, we have a bunch of, as you said, pretty solid, talented players, and we'll add another guy from free agency or from a trade, and we'll be competitive, but not contending. Because 80 at 31 years old right now had his healthiest season since he was in New Orleans.
Kevin.
Since he was in New Orleans.
3 out of the last 4 years, they've been in the play-in.
Yes.
And you just saw them play against the best team in the Western Conference, and they're not even close. They can't even win a game. Not even one game.
Trae Young doesn't put you over Denver.
They can't win a game against them. That's how far they are. They literally can't win once.
But if you added Mitchell or Trae to the Lakers today, you'd still pick the Nuggets in the series.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, how about this? If you added Stephen Curry to this Lakers roster, would you still pick the Nuggets to win the series?
Absolutely not. Oh, okay. Hey.
I'm just asking the question.
Dude, look, that's a thing that I've been thinking about.
Oh, it's definitely asking out.
No.
LeBron going to the Warriors.
Steph trying to that they go to this friggin' Team USA and
for sure.
And the old heads get together and concoct a plan where I
don't think they got to go to USA. They're doing it already.
We're done. We're done with these young guys. Edwards has got his team. So Curry and LeBron and Durant, and they're all going to try to make the old Avengers or something.
That would be really cool, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be sick?
That crap's going to try to come together when they do Team USA. They're going to be figuring out ways to get on each other's teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wrote it a year ago. I remember last year when LeBron, after his presser, was like, "Oh, maybe I'll be back. Maybe I won't be. Maybe I'll retire." And I pitched, maybe he wants to go to the Warriors. And then this year we actually had the rumors become alive, like, ooh, LeBron, Lakers, Warriors. It could happen. It didn't happen. But I wonder if this summer, with Klay's contract situation, Chris Paul becoming a free agent, if this could be the year that LeBron tries to find his way there to pair up with Stephen Curry, who he's always had a basketball crush on, and his BFF Draymond Green.
Well, and this is going to be really interesting to monitor, Kevin, as the years go on. Now, obviously, the salary cap will probably go up. Obviously, there's going to be a new media deal coming up. But as these guys age, and they're getting paid an absolute fortune, because you see 3 guys that we've spent the better part of the last 15 years watching and doing, pods the last 8, talking about Stephen Curry. He's on a team, and it's like he's by himself. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, right? Like these guys now, they're not in their absolute primes, but they are still the best players on their teams. But it's not good enough.
No.
It's not good enough.
Uh-uh.
You know what I mean? But by the time you're that age, you're making crazy money. It's a real, it's tough. Which of these teams is going to be able to win with the aged superstar while they're still paying them the fortune, right? Because, hell, I was reading something today and it's like, it was super depressing for Suns fans, but Brad Beal gets paid like $50 million next year or something. It's like, oh my God, right?
Even with AD next year is $54 million, then he's $59 million, and then he's $63 million with a player option when he'll be 34 years old.
Yeah, that's the trick. Can they be the best player on a title team now in 2024? It would be your supporting cast would have to be so good, right? And you make too much money for me to have an amazing supporting cast, right? So, at some point they're going to have to just take reduced salaries and all go together if they want to pull this off. And the other thing is it's hard how are you going to have a player better than them? Because these are first ballot, top 10 players of all time, possibly. Just the 3 I mentioned. And it's like, are we going to move into a spot where there's somebody as good as or better than Curry, somebody that's as good as or better than LeBron, good as or better than Durant? And like, where do they kind of meld as this goes on? Because we're going to look up at the end of this first round and we don't have any of them probably.
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
It's kind of the end of the road.
Yeah. I mean, this is a year in which it feels like,
because even LeBron, we got to the Western Conference Finals last year,
Yeah. But this is the year where it feels like the baton has been passed to the next wave of stars, where it's been a complete change in who the premier guys are in the playoffs. Regular season, these guys are still all-stars, all-NBA guys, but playoffs is a completely different story. And that is unusual, like you said, compared to last year where we still did have LeBron. And you know what? I like your idea, though. The old guy Avengers joining up together, see if they can do it together.
You don't think that's what they're going to be talking about at Team USA?
Yeah, they'll be talking about it for sure. They're probably already talking about it. Draymond Green probably texted LeBron by the time we press publish on this pod.
Something always comes from Team USA.
Oh, yeah.
Something that shakes up the league. But, hey, look, we've talked a lot about the LeBron stuff, the Lakers stuff, their demise, the fact that thing's over, and we saw it coming anyway. We do need to take one moment to just appreciate how devastating this Denver team truly is. It's going to be great to see if they can get a challenge, because they lost 4 games last year in the playoffs. And we've watched them play 3, and it's like, at one point, I can't remember who the announcer was, but he said, he just, like, it was almost like it took his breath away. Like, Lakers went on this, like, mini run, and then they came down, ran the friggin' Jokic Murray pick and roll. Murray turns the corner, throws it over to Aaron Gordon, wide open dunk. And it's like they went back to old reliable as soon as they needed a bucket, and it's always available. And if it's not, then they just throw it out to Michael Porter Jr., who shoots over Austin Reeves or whatever. But anyway, the announcer, like, damn near gasped, and he's like, They're just unstoppable. Like, really, when they're honed in, because they know each other so well, and they know the answer to the puzzle. No matter what defense you throw at them, they know what the correct option to do is. So it's like, oh, you're going to show on this? Okay. Well, now I'm going to throw it back out to Jokic, and he's going to go one-on-one because he's got a mismatch. Or I'm going to throw it back out to Porter, or I'm going to throw it down there to Aaron Gordon for a wide-open dunk. It's impossible to deal with. So do need to take a moment. I would say this in my Kevin O'Connor voice. Don't take the Nuggets for granted, Kevin. Don't. This is one of the great teams we're getting to watch. Beautiful basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take them for granted.
I mean, we're witnessing a guy who's probably going to end up a top 10 greatest player ever in Jokic if he keeps on winning. And this team has a chance to be a dynasty. It does. We'll see if they can go back to back. My Nuggets article before the year that I reported, Calvin Booth said to me how the goal isn't to go back to back, it's to build a dynasty. Well, they do have a chance to actually go back to back here. Like, they are the best team in the league. They have the best player. Their young guys have developed enough to give them support, and they have a real shot here to actually go all the way again. I don't see any match for them. I think in the West, Minnesota is the most intriguing team that can go against them with their defense and their size and their versatility. They could make that a hell of a series, but OKC is too young, not big enough. I would not pick the Clippers or the Mavericks over Denver. I think those teams are competitive, but I wouldn't pick them. And there's nobody in the East that I would pick against Denver, and nobody that I think could take them to a 7 except for like healthy peak Bucks. And I don't think it's realistic to expect that from Milwaukee.
I'll say this. I don't know if they'll get there. The only one that would have a chance to be the best player in a series that includes Jokic is Luka. He's the only
one. How about Giannis and the Bucks side of things? So you just mean in the West?
Yeah, in the West. I'm saying in the West.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's the only player. Like, Edwards is not going to have a better series than Jokic over the course of a series.
But Luka could.
He's the only one.
I agree with you. Yeah, he's the only one.
Especially now because we've seen what Kawhi looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to get to a ton of other series, including the games that happened earlier this evening. We'll do that on the other side. All right, Kev, let's get to those early games that took place tonight. The first of which was Orlando versus Cleveland, 121-83. Orlando responds after they were down 0-2 from their losses in Cleveland. Looked totally anemic on offense. Couldn't make any shots to stretch out that Cleveland defense. Couldn't ever get in transition and get in front of their home crowd. First home playoff game in 5 years for Orlando, and they made the most of it. A young team who certainly came out ready to fight, scratch, and claw. We're getting all kinds of offensive rebounds in the game. I mean, they start off jittery, slow, missed their first 8 shots of the game, and I was a little worried.
Down 6-0.
Yeah, shoot. Like, is this just the way this is going to be? Yeah, 0 for 8 to start off.
Another game scoring in the 80s?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And then they got cracking. In fact, their first bucket was actually a sign of things to come, right? It was Franz driving to the left on Mobley, gets the and one. And then by the end of that first quarter, second half of that first quarter, they started going. You got Paolo going. You got Suggs making plays and shots. And what really stood out to me is, this team, both these teams are big teams. Orlando, not only were they amazing offensive rebound, I mean, they had like a 40% offensive rebound rate, but they got enough buckets that they were able to go set up that defense. And now Cleveland looked like the ones that couldn't get any good shots in the game. It was total reversal. Like, they're both teams that can't play in the half court, right? You don't want to play the games in the half court. You want to be up and moving and pace and space and everything. And that size for Orlando can really swallow you up. It's what they hung their hat on, the defensive end, throughout the year, and why they're even in the playoffs at the good seed that they are in the first place. And they just weren't able to get enough buckets in those first two games to be able to set up their defense. And tonight
they had
did.
83, 86, 121. And I think the flip side of that, though, is they did hold the Cavs to 97 and 96. So this is the third game now they've held Cleveland under 100 with 83 tonight for the Cavaliers. We saw Jamal Mosley, the Magic head coach, make two, pretty notable adjustments. One, moving Wendell Carter into the starting five in favor of Jonathan Isaac, who came off the bench instead. But they also were more aggressive on defense, more blitzing, more showing, hedging on pick and rolls. They're a bit more aggressive than they were in past games instead of sometimes just giving up the switch. And I think both of those things combined, on top of the fact that they just had guys make shots. Banchero was absolutely unbelievable. All of that did combine to make them look more like the team that I picked to win the series, that people thought had a chance to beat the Cavaliers. And I think with them, you can't rule it out. You got a Saturday morning game, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. local time, early game. Those matinees, you never know what can happen sometimes. So I think it's very possible that we see Cleveland lose 2 in a row in Orlando, and then it goes back to Cleveland 2-2. But more than anything else from tonight, Chris, the big takeaway has to be Paolo Banchero.
This was
31
the
points,
moment. Yeah.
14 rebounds, 5 assists, in complete and utter control of the game. Banchero, 13 of 26, 4 of 9, and most impressive to me, I thought, 0 turnovers. Despite all the shots, all the touches, all the playmaking, he had a pass third quarter of that game, and it's like they're up at that point, but you know how it is in the NBA. Like you still feel like you got a shot considering the way the NBA goes with the amount of shooting there is. And he pump faked on Strus at the right elbow, drew him out of the air. 4 Cavaliers defenders looking at him. He just leaned forward, found a cutter, Wendell Carter at the rim. Just a beautiful play that I thought weaponized the scoring that we saw from him tonight and created for others at a really high level. He was absolutely sensational.
Young star that put the team on his back. And then the other one that you have to mention, Suggs was absolutely out of his mind on both ends. Like, not only did he hardly miss any shots in the game, bro, he has that dog where the crowd and that team just feed off of him. How about the friggin' windmill on the break? Oh, my God. He is so fun. That was like Gonzaga Suggs. It really was, where it's like he doesn't care. He's there for it. I'll die on this court if that's what it means, but we're not losing this game. And he plays to the crowd, and he's so aggressive. And then, of course, when he's making his shots. But I thought it was crucial. You know, we talked about how they didn't have anything to give them any airspace. It's crucial. They made 8 of their first 23s, which is not some kind of crazy rate, but it's enough. It's enough that it has to be respected. It's enough that you take an extra step, and just that extra step now gives these guys some room to operate, right? Paolo, Franz driving, because these guys are great driving to the basket, and they're big. And then even if they miss the chippies, they got 3 guys that are crashing the boards that all have size. And so they actually were able to use the size to their advantage. And then on the other side, Cleveland looked like crap. I mean, not only did they get defended, they just they looked like a team that was up to zip and comfortable. And, you know, you see this a lot when it comes to game 3s, where the team that is up, just psychologically, it's not any kind of a must-win situation. Yet for the team that is down 0-2, your back is completely against the wall. Everybody knows what happens when you go down 0-3. It's damn near a death sentence when it comes to NFL playoff lives. But you can still, you know, in most cases, even if you're down 0-2, 3 is the game that you get the absolute home run effort. And the tale's going to be told in game 4. Do you think that this informs us better for game 4 in that Orlando can knot this thing up and make this what could be a long and great series? Or do you think that this was a one-night stand?
No, I think Orlando could definitely win this on Saturday. And one of the keys is what you said about Jalen Suggs with the way he's been playing defense. And I mean, true for really Orlando's perimeter defense in general. Garland in the series is 13 of 32 from the field. Mitchell had a really great game 1, 11 of 21. We talked on the podcast that night how Mitchell's had now 3 great games in a row. He looks more like himself. Well, 9 of 22 in game 2, 6 of 16 tonight. Not the best performances by Mitchell after 3 straight games going back to during the regular season. So that's in part due to Orlando's defense, but getting Mitchell going is going to be the key for the Cavaliers above all else. You need Mitchell to be more like that game 1 version of himself. But that's tough to do against this Magic defense, which is just ferocious in every single way. They have 5 good defenders on the floor at all times, and Jalen Suggs is absolutely sensational.
Yeah, if they can get the buckets, which it seems like a young team is so jazzed up by that crowd, if they can get the buckets, then they can set up their defense, and their defense truly can fuel their offense, because that's what they have to do. They have to be able to play end to end. It's when they get in the half court that it can just all get so bogged down. And Cleveland got them into you run a play, we run a play game in game 1 and game 2, and then they were able to get out and go and get, even if they miss their shots, they were able to get the ball back in game 3. So this is going to be fun to watch. They might have turned this into a series. So we talked about Paolo Banchero putting the team on his back and having a star performance at home, which was unbelievable, but not as great as the other one we saw tonight, which was Joel Embiid. My God, this was the Joel Embiid that was averaging more points than he was minutes before he got hurt this year. And the third quarter display that he and the rest of the Sixers put on just put this thing away. It was far enough out of reach that it was just too uphill for the Knicks the rest of the way. Even though they got this brilliant Brunson performance, it was too uphill. And this is exactly what you want. He backed up his mouth after the game. He said, we're going to win this series. We're going to win the next game. We're going to win this series. And then he came out and had 18 in that third quarter. And they went, I think, 9 of 12 is what I charted out from 3 in the quarter. I had it as Maxey, Embiid, Lowry, Oubre, Payne, Embiid. Those were the threes in the third quarter. So what's that? I had 4, I think, marked down, or 5. 4 marked down for Embiid, I think. So he had 4 or 5. And then, of course, those other guys chipped in with theirs, but ended up 9 of 12 from 3 in that third quarter and really pulled away in that game. And we talked about going into it like, hey, at home, the other guys are the ones that could chip in. It was a big positive that in game 1 and game 2, they still got really good Maxey games and got good Embiid games. But they had one other double-digit scorer like Tobias Harris in one of the games. We were like, man, when they get back home, maybe they'll get the guys show up. They get double digits out of Payne. They get 15 out of Oubre. They get 9 out of Lowry. They get 8 out of Harris, right? They got guys making shots and making plays. And, of course, Embiid drops 50. 50.
Joel Embiid, a masterpiece. One eye, one leg, 50 bomb. Nowhere near 100%. Pretty awesome to see him do this tonight. And the crazy thing about it, he has this, like you said, this is the Joel Embiid playoff performance that we've seen so far. And if it were a different referee, he might have been thrown out in the first quarter. Like it almost didn't happen. After he's on the ground and he kind of, tugs at Mitchell Robinson's leg, punches his leg as he's on the ground, however you want to frame it. Only got the flagrant 1, not a flagrant 2, and he stays in the game, and then he goes on to have this absolutely sensational performance. Embiid, And Maxey again. Maxey was very good once again tonight. Nick Nurse bringing Campaign off the bench. That was a very smart move. Payne played great in his 16 minutes off the bench for the Sixers. This is why with Philadelphia, why Embiid could say that after the game. He knows he's the best player in the series. He knows they shouldn't have blown game 2. They could just as easily be up 2-1 in the series right now. I guess they did answer the call after blowing that game. I wasn't sure they had it in them, but had it in them as a collective, but they did. And you have to feel like they do have a chance considering the sheer talent and the fact that they actually did respond to that heartbreaker.
Well, we know what their record was throughout the year. You know, I talked about it many times on the pod. Their record with Embiid and Maxey together in the lineup was better than the Celtics record in terms of win percentage. It was freakish. So we know what they are capable of and what their record was when they have had both of those guys available. We thought you're getting Embiid at, and everybody's kept talking about it, this is a diminished version. This is not Joel Embiid. Well, the diminished version just scored 50. Look, it goes without saying, you do have to wonder if them bitching about the refs and that being such a big deal also helped the guy go to the line 21 times. 21 free throw attempts is crazy.
Yeah, well, it also didn't help him go. It didn't help him go 13-19, though.
No.
He was dominant in every single way.
Of course he was. But 21 is an extreme number.
Yeah.
You do not see guys go to the free throw line. What? Yeah, like you're just blowing it off. 21 free throws.
I know, but it's not the first time Embiid's.
But Kevin, we've been watching NBA playoff games where teams haven't gone 21 times. They're not calling anything anymore.
I know.
And all of a sudden, a guy goes to the free throw line 21 times. It's wild. It's wild to see, like nobody else on the team.
Are you suggesting that NBA wanted that?
I'm saying that if there was a course correction that favored them, it would not be surprising. Considering, I mean, look, everybody's seen the replay and everybody saw the 2-minute report. They obviously got effed in game 2, right? Like the NBA basically admitted you guys got screwed in game 2, right? So fair's fair. This one, if you want to say, hey, this guy should not have gone to the line 21 times, I would probably agree with you. That being said, you can't complain too much. Like, all right, now it's even, right? If that's what you want to say. If you want to say, hey, man, what's going on here? Like, but on the other hand, he was stepping into threes and making them.
Yeah.
And he's 5 of 7 from 3. And like I said, that 18-point third quarter, anybody that watched that knows that was not because he was going to the free throw line. That team just caught fire in the third. And everybody started. It just became contagious. They were getting out in space and they were knocking down these threes that if you're going to shoot whatever it was, 9 of 12 from 3, I mean, you got to tip your cap at some point, right? And the Knicks, interestingly enough, Brunson, who we had talked about, seemed to have been bothered by the length in the first 2 games, and we wondered if that was a cause for pause. He was unbelievable tonight. Problem is, he didn't have everything to go along with him that he had in the other games, and he did. It's not like he didn't have good support. Hart went for 20 points. Hartenstein 7 of 12. OG 7 of 11. It's Hartenstein got killed though.
I know, but I'm
just killed all game.
But I'm just saying, offensive support. It's not like he didn't have help. They did score 114. It's just Embiid was.
That's right.
Embiid was unstoppable.
That's right. No, it's
that
enough.
Was the difference. Embiid was incredible. That was the difference.
Well, and they've gotten some pretty awesome bench performances recently, and Philly's gotten really nothing, and this was a lot more evened out, right? Where Philly actually got, and that's what we talk about. Look, this happens at home. Campaign plays 15 minutes. He's got 11 points, and has anybody ever hit shots and made a bigger deal out of them than Cam Payne. It's a Memphis guy, so I should stand up for him. But my God, Cam, have you ever made a shot where the whole world doesn't know you'd made the shot? It's unbelievable.
I think Nurse putting in Cam Payne and giving him an opportunity is one of the quick differences we're seeing between Nurse versus Doc Rivers. Like, Nurse immediately empowered Payne to do what he does, played him in Buddy Hield's role. He took his minutes. Hield only played 4 minutes. But the fact that Nick Nurse was willing to try different things and not stick to, his exact game plan, I thought that was a very positive change, just to see that even in the first half before the game blew open in the third quarter. It was like, okay, they're doing some different stuff here. And that's one of the simple ones, is playing Cam Payne, who with Hield struggles seemed like the guy that they should be playing, and he did. And he flourished.
Again, you need 8, right? You need 8. And so at least having a sixth guy that could give you something. And that was the advantage, in those first couple of games that the Knicks had, right? Because Deuce McBride was unbelievable. Just energy-wise, feeling like things are changing. Bogdanovich came off the bench. He gave him something. Obviously, you've had Mitchell Robinson came in that first game and was just contesting everything with Embiid. And so they've gotten their contributions as well. But these extra guys and kind of what they give you. But, you're absolutely right. Look, you're not winning anything. You give up 125 points. That's the end of that. What are you going to do? Score 126? Okay. You're not scoring 126. So the Knicks have to get back to the whole hanging their hat on the defensive end as well and trying to get some stops. But it is 3 consecutive now that Embiid and Maxey have both been great. And that was one of the things that we talked about after they got their heart ripped out in game 2 as a reason for real positivity for them going forward. You want to see, how are your stars performing? And maybe it's a positive for the Knicks in that Brunson kind of figured some stuff out, how to get things going, but they got to figure out, they got to make some real defensive adjustments. And the other thing is, if we're being fair, can Embiid keep this up? Right? Can he keep it up? Because he's obviously, we thought, not the full version of him, but my God, what the hell percentage are you if you're getting 50 points? He needed that too. Wouldn't you say? Embiid needed
for
that.
Sure. Yeah, especially after what he said after the game.
He also just needed it for history's sake.
Sure.
Right? This is a signature game.
Yeah, but it's only the first round. This will be forgotten. What he really needs is a run.
I don't know, man. 50 in a playoff game, I don't think gets forgotten.
It's the first round.
I mean, it'll get it. Yeah, I guess it
game
can't
3.
It'll get forgotten if you lose. But if you win, everybody will remember what you got. 50.
If you win and then you advance to the next round and then you have another great series and then you finally get to the third round, then it will definitely be remembered and respected. But I think for Sixers fans, yes, it'll be a memorable game. One eye, one leg, not 100% Joel Embiid, but in the grand scheme of things, they need to win. That's the most important stat in the playoffs, is winning. 50, yeah, it's nice, but you got to win.
It feels like this is going 7, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
It does. It
feels like it.
It feels like it's going to go back and forth.
I hope it's a game 7.
I do
7-game series. I hope we get a handful of them.
Where we get Embiid in Madison Square Garden for a game 7.
Ooh, that'd be incredible.
It'd be absolutely incredible. But no, great response by Philly. And again, because game 2 was a toss-up, and then you saw this response tonight, that's what makes me feel like this is going to be a long series. And look, if you're right about Orlando and Cleveland, and that was a sign of things to come, rather than just the first game at home boost, might get 2 long series out of this deal. Hell, every series in the East might be long. Who knows?
You never know.
I mean, the stupid Celtics, which we'll get to in a little bit. We didn't count on them letting them have a 6 or 7 game series, but they're 1 game away from letting that thing be 6. So who knows? We got to get to the Celtics and all the rest of those series. We'll do that after these words. All right, Kev, we've got to hit the other series. So the games that are going to be going back in action on Friday night. We got the Bucks and the Pacers first. Now that is knotted up at 1 after the Bucks took it to the Pacers in game number 1. Pacers really responded in the second game. And, you know, when we recorded our last episode, I told you that in many cases, and this is going to be an ongoing theme, in many cases, in the first 2 games of the series, I almost would rather have my team get run off the floor because then the adjustments become drastic rather than lose a close game. Because if you lose a close game, that other team still goes back to their film and they're like, we got to clean this up, we got to clean this up, we got to clean this up. But if they just run you out, it's hard to know how much they need to clean up. Whereas your changes are drastic, and most of the teams that are worth their salt are going to respond in a second game and at least make that game much more difficult for you if you got run out in game number 1. And that was absolutely the case with the Pacers. My God, how much different did they look? We went from Damian Lillard just bombing them out in game number 1, literally in the first half, like the game was over, to game number 2, they came out with fight, they came out with tenacity, and they looked fast and athletic, and the Bucks looked slow and old. I mean, it was just a complete turn of events from game 1 to game 2. So now, how do you think this sets up as they head back to Indiana?
I think it sets up the Bucks need Giannis. They need him.
And they might be without Middleton.
And exactly. Like, there's some problems here for the Milwaukee side. It goes on both ends of the floor. The fact you have Brook Lopez defending Pascal Siakam, you're willingly taking your rim protector away from the paint against a guy who's a near 40% guy off the catch from 3 for the Pacers ever since he was acquired midseason, a guy who's one of the league's best at attacking closeouts. And you're pulling Brook Lopez away, hurting your defense, allowing Indiana to use Siakam and make him look like a top 10 player. That's what he looks like in this series right now against the Bucks. And B, without Giannis, you would have him defending Siakam, first of all, but then offensively, this team is getting nothing in the paint. Nothing in the paint. You're not able to slow things down and dictate the pace of the game. By not getting in the paint, you're allowing Indiana to run out more. It's a domino effect there. And so I think with Giannis, obviously they need their best player. That goes without saying. But the things Indiana is doing and exploiting is because Giannis is out. And you got to give credit to Rick Carlisle and the Pacers coaching staff for doing that, because they are just feeding Siakam. If it's not Brook Lopez, he's attacking a smaller defender too.
And that is number 1 on the list if you're Doc Rivers, right? Like, this can't be. We cannot survive with this guy having 70 points in the first couple of games of this series. Like, he can't be the best player on the floor every night. And so that's going to be an interesting turn of events. That's what I'm most interested in. Okay, you know that this guy is a major, major problem. And then we see teams make the adjustment, and then other guys got to step up. In a series we're going to get to a little bit later, when we talk about the T-Wolves and the Suns, you knew the Suns were going to come out and say, all right, this can't be with Anthony Edwards. But then Jaden McDaniels kills you. Then Mike Conley kills you. Then this other guy kills you. And that's when you know you've got a real problem on your hands. On the other hand, who's the other guy? Like, if they are able to make life hell for Siakam, then who are those other Indiana guys that are really going to step up? Because a little subplot is that Halliburton is still not, and it appears we're not going to get the Halliburton that we got earlier in the season. Like, that guy, we're probably not getting him back until next season, hopefully.
Well, one note on that, Chris. With Halliburton, I was on Bill Simmons' podcast on Tuesday night after these games, right?
Yep.
And one of the things Bill and I talked about was Halliburton. And earlier in that day, I pulled up some numbers that I want to throw at you as well, because I think they're quite interesting in terms of painting a picture about what's missing from Halliburton's game right now, before the injury and after the injury. And the interesting thing is with him is pretty much, like, at least statistically, most of the efficiency numbers are the same. Like, his volume is way down. He's shooting 4 less times per game. His points per game is from 24 points to 16.9 points per game before and after the injury. So volume is way down. But efficiency-wise, before the injury, he shot 44% on catch and shoot threes. After the injury, 39% on catch and shoot threes. The difference is off the dribble. Pull up threes before the injury, 39%. After, 29%. However, it's interesting to look at the fact that he still has been a killer for mid-range. 49% for mid-range prior to the injury, 60% for mid-range after the injury. The at-rim numbers, the paint numbers are the same as well. But my thing, and I threw this at Bill, I want to know your thoughts. Should Halliburton just be discarding the 3-point pull-up for now in favor of the mid-range? Because he has proven every season of his career to be a mid-range assassin. It's just he doesn't use it often. But maybe just use it more now, adapt, because the teams, the way they're defending you, they know you're trying to get to the 3, and maybe because of the injury, you just don't have as much range. To me, that's what I want to see Halliburton do this series. Use the mid-range.
I would tell you that when you reel off those numbers, what it says to me is that this is a much less aggressive basketball player. And so you might be right? The numbers at the mid-range might be fine, but the volume's not going to be high, right? He's a guy that is more, he's an analytically savvy guy, right? He's a threes and go to the basket guy. But if he, and you say the volume is down, and then you tell me the catch and shoot threes are fine, right? Well, that's not where I'm having to make any kind of move. I'm not having to be aggressive with the ball. There is some reason, I would say injury, that there is like this real lack of aggression. And so it's not necessarily about like, hey, he needs to do more of this. There's a reason he's not doing more of that. And it's the same reason that he's not hitting off the dribble threes anymore. Like, he was just, like, when we were at that IST, he's crossing you over, stepping back and hitting threes. Like, that stuff, that where he's aggressive with the ball, like, I've got the ball and I'm going to take you. And, we see it with Gilgeous-Alexander all the time now, right? Where Gilgeous-Alexander, he'll get to his spot in that mid-range, or he'll get to his spot. Sometimes if they switch off on him and they've got a big on him, he'll just pull up for 3. I think that's all about aggression and the fact that that's what's been taken away. That's what doesn't exist that did exist. He was like the alpha. He was the guy that was like, this game's going to be decided by me. End of story. And so, again, there will be a bigger story that comes out about it after this season's all done, and we'll hear about how injured he was and about how he wouldn't have played if it weren't for the 65-game rule. And he's either happy that he made third-team All-NBA, or he's crushed that he didn't make third-team All-NBA given what he sacrificed. But I just think that guy, Kev, like, that shot might be the shot that he needs to get to. There's a reason he's not getting to those kind of shots anymore on a regular basis, and it deals with that volume being down.
I do think the injury is limiting him, for sure. I do. At the same time, I still like you watch the moments he has the ball in pick and roll. We know the way teams defend. Mm-hmm. They are often willing to give the mid-range.
Yeah.
There are openings and possibilities for him to take that shot, and he's not taking it because of habit, in my opinion, watching him play. I think he is threes and layups, as you said, or pass. That's what he is. And he doesn't take many mid-range jumpers, but the ones he does hit, I watched back a bunch of clips from the season of some of his pull-ups. He's got like leaning fadeaways and like some nasty mid-range pull-up shots. And I just think I just look at the numbers and I just wonder, maybe he should just not shoot as many step back threes or sidestep threes, because that's what he's always done and does at a high level. But right now it's not working. Maybe he should go instead to do more of what is working. And we'll see if he adapts. It's tough to change your habits midway through a playoff series. But I think with Halliburton, I want to see him try, because I think there's something there for him to tap into.
Well, and even in his current state, he still gets things going and he gets that ball moving, right? He gets, what so many of these coaches want, which is, it's interesting. They want the paint touch, but they don't necessarily want the paint shot, right? So the goal is get to the paint, but the goal is to get to the paint so that it collapses the defense so I can kick it out, right? So he can still get to the spot in order to get the kick out, swing. And now you've got, and this is where they can really put pressure on Brook Lopez, as you say. Like you saw, Miles Turner took one of those threes in a decently big moment where the game is still somewhat in the balance, but he just stepped into it. And Brook Lopez is literally, standing underneath the net. And Miles Turner's just whacking a three. And it's like, okay. Like, if this is how they're going to play this, then if Miles Turner and Siakam and these guys can make some outside shots, they're not really even having to collapse the defense necessarily. I'd like to think that the Bucks respond and this becomes like a good series, but God, dog, they look like they had no athletes in that game. When the Pacers looked good and were flying up and down and looked much more like the Pacers team we saw during the regular season, it looked like it was going to be a real problem for the Bucks. And if they don't have Middleton, who in the hell is Lillard supposed to be passing to go get me a bucket? Bobby Portis?
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Portis? Who? Malik Beasley? Who am I expecting to help carry the load here? You want to talk about it's been Lillard-centric. It's going to have to be totally Lillard. This guy's going to have to go for 50.
Well, it's like we talked about after game one. I said to you, Dame was the guy everybody's talking about, but Middleton also looked great.
Yes.
Middleton's critical to the Bucks.
He is. Of course he
always has been in the postseason. And he wasn't great in that game too. What was it? First half he fell and he looked hurt, if I remember correctly. But he'd 6 for 14 in the game, 15 points on 14 shots. It wasn't his best game. He didn't look anywhere near as great as he did in game one. Dude, I think with the Bucks, this is an old team. It's an old team, and they look old, especially juxtaposed against that Pacers team.
You usually only get one chance to bully the other team, right? That's a lesson that we usually learn in the playoffs. And they bullied the Pacers in game number one. So they got their bully game out of the way. I don't think they're able to bully them anymore with the just out-physicaling them, being that older, veteran, savvy team that's had a lot of playoff games under their belt. This is going to have to be Doc making adjustments and making life hell on Siakam and then saying, okay, if Ben Mathurin's going to kill me, and by the way, I owe a very public apology to Ben Shepherd, who I defamed in our last podcast with who the hell is Ben Shepherd and why is he playing 9 minutes in that game one looking like a deer in the headlights? Big minutes from Ben Shepherd in game two.
He was great in game two, and that's one of the things Carlisle did in the game. In game one against the Bucks, he played 11 guys before the end of the first quarter. He played only 8 guys in game two until garbage time.
That's right.
He trimmed the rotation completely, and it is very interesting that he did select Ben Shepherd as one of those guys.
I know.
To play, because Shepherd wasn't great in game one, and for that matter, Shepherd wasn't great during the season.
Kevin, he shot less than 40% from the field.
And 31% from three. So it's like an interesting thing, and I wonder, like, he probably wants that size out of the position right now. Like 6'6", Shepherd can't, he's a solid overall player. He plays hard. You don't have Mathurin right now, so you're playing Shepherd instead in that kind of that similar type of role, filling the 6'6" wing spot. That maybe that's part of it there, rather than, you don't have a ton of other, options on the bench that can do that. So it might just be a sheer fact that you don't have Mathurin right now.
I'd imagine their crowd will be absolutely lit, especially after the Halliburton comments. The roof should be coming off at that place. So you might just be walking into a straight Hornets nest if you're Milwaukee. I'm having a tough time with this one because this could go so many different ways, honestly. And especially now without Middleton. Like, I don't trust either of these teams. Is that fair?
No, not at all. I don't know. I mean, all I know is you definitely don't trust the Bucks without Giannis.
I know.
That's for sure. You definitely don't trust the Bucks without Giannis. It's amazing how much worse their shooting looks without one of the most dominant at-rim finishers we've ever seen in league history.
Yep. Next series, a lot of the same themes to me, which is it's now tied up at 1-1. One of the teams totally bully balled the other team in game number 1. And then in game number 2, real adjustments, especially in physicality, tenacity, and all the things that you need to bring to the table were made. And the Mavs were able to get game 2 against the Clippers as they reinstalled Kawhi Leonard into the starting lineup, though he looked nothing like best player in the playoffs virtually every time he plays in the playoffs, Kawhi Leonard. So that one's knotted up at 1. They're going to meet up for a game 3. Obviously, like I said, they bullied them in game 1. Mavs responded in game 2 because they're worth their salt. I still think this is going to be a really long series. I do. After watching the first 2 games and the way that those played out, I didn't watch game 1 and think, oh, the Clippers are just going to dispose of them. I didn't watch game 2 and say, oh, the Mavs have it figured out. I mean, I thought Zubats missed. I think Zubats was like 5 for 12 or something from the field. I mean, I went and looked at the box score after watching the game, and I was like, God, how many bunnies does this guy miss that, like, he never misses? Because he doesn't take any shots outside of 1 foot. Like, Zubats only shoots from 1 foot away. It's either a dunk or it's a 1-footer. How is he 5 for 12? That's like a Devin Booker line or something.
The Mavs were swarming, dude.
Oh, I know.
The Mavericks played so well against him.
Jason Kidd ran in there and called him a bunch of P words. After game 1, he did.
P-words? Which P word?
Well, the one that you're not allowed to say. But he, he did. Jason Kidd, that's what he's like. And man, like they were led by their, I don't even know the word to say. Fiery doesn't even explain what Doncic was as a leader in this game.
God, yeah.
I mean, it was like, I remember I talked about it on my local show. It's like Gladiator or something, right? Where he's like going in there and he's like, cutting a lion's head off, and then he turns to the crowd. Are you not entertained? Like, he's just yelling. He's like, what do you yell? I'm a effing a-hole or something to the crowd. And after he hit that shot in Harden's face. And it was like, my God. I mean, he was fired up. He was good. Kyrie was good. And then they got other guys to come along. I made my public apology to Ben Shepherd. Are you ready to make yours? Come on.
To who?
Big shot Max Kleber.
Oh.
I thought that was so funny.
I was like, wait, who?
Dude. After the Ben Shepherd
he
crap,
shot well. He went for 2 for 3.
No,
he played well,
but they were massive shots. Swing,
huge,
knock them down. And after what happened with Ben Shepherd, I was laughing so hard during this Clippers. I was like, oh my God, anybody that gets to this friggin' podcast late is going to hear me saying, who the hell is Ben Shepherd? And Ben Shepherd making plays. And Kevin saying, what the hell happened? He doesn't even shoot the same. He can't make anything anymore. And Maxi Kleber's hitting crucial 3-pointers in this game.
He would, Kleber was awesome.
Hilarious.
In that game. That was vintage Kleber. It makes me wonder if he's a listener.
I know.
Or if somebody in his circle is like, hey, listen to these two clowns talking about you. But I mean, that was vintage Maxi Kleber. He hit the big shots, as you said. And then, like you mentioned, Zubac's going 5 for 12. Kleber made a play at some point late in that game where Zubac received the ball on the right block. And I think it was like Derek Lively was on a switch. And the ball found Zubac inside, and Kleber just came over and completely swatted the ball away, kind of half blocked him, half poked it away as on the way up like a steal. And like Luka was there, and it was just a good example of why Zubac went 5 for 12 because of Kleber's help, the amount of size and arms and aggression on him. I just thought Kleber played a really good overall game defensively. Off ball and on ball, and then offensively he did what he has to do, and that's hit shots.
Kawhi did not look like Kawhi.
He did not look like Kawhi at all. Kawhi looked like a diminished version of himself, 72%, something like that.
And it's
75%.
like you have to play him, right? Like if he says he's willing to play, you have to play him. But I don't think it was. I think it's fair to wonder if it was the best mode of operation in that game to get him back in the mix after. You have to play him, but
no flow.
It's been 3.5 weeks. And now you're trying to get, you know what I mean? All these guys have just figured out, everybody's minutes change. Everybody's role changes. And it's like, they just got back to doing the Harden Zubac pick and roll, bounce it to the outside. Paul George is now doing something on the wing. And like, they had a mode of operation. And now that changes because now he's the best player. He's the guy that we're going to rally behind. He's going to be our leading shot taker. And it's like, this guy hadn't played with us in 3 weeks. And now Harden's got to fall more to the background and Westbrook's got to fall more to the background. I mean, I think it's hard to do that, like especially after you had such a rousing game 1 victory.
You have to do it, though.
Of course
you have to play Kawhi Leonard. He is still a dominant force when he gets going in the postseason. So it was worth it. You still only lose the game by 3. It was a very winnable game, despite Kawhi being only 7 of 17, not looking quite the same. The offense not looking anywhere near the same. I think it's also, easy to point to Kawhi's return, but I do think the Mavericks deserve credit. I mean, Derrick Jones Jr. played a hell of a game defending off ball, helping, pressuring George, Harden, and Kawhi. PJ Washington, very good as well on ball, making things difficult on Kawhi Leonard, and he was good off ball. Like, I just think all of these guys up and down the board, Maxi Kleber, like all of them. Luka has himself too. Lively off the bench with Gafford getting hurt and missing time. All of them played a really, really, really strong game defensively. And I think for the Clippers, yes, Kawhi return was an element of that, but also Dallas's defense was great.
Well, you've also got to feel good because your stars have been able to be stars, right? Both Kyrie and Luka so far have still, while game 1 was just a run out, they still put up their numbers. Luka didn't shoot as well as Kyrie did, but
that's the thing, Chris. Right. 11 for 26 in both games for Luka.
Right.
Luka hasn't had, even though he's put up the volume numbers, 33 points, 32 points, he hasn't had the types of games that we know he can have in the postseason. Like, we saw him.
Yeah, and I also, to that point, he's going to have to score more because that team's going to have to score more. It's been a war so far. I don't care how good everybody wants to say their defense has gotten. They're not going to be able to survive scoring 94 points or whatever the hell they score. You know what I'm saying?
96.
Yeah, okay. 90. It was 96, 94. Is that what the final was?
96, 93.
Okay,
yep.
93. They're not going to give up 93 on a regular basis. They're just not. They're not giving up 93 on a regular basis. So they've got to figure out how to, Ty Lue is a really good coach. He'll make things easier for his guys by the next game. So you've got to be able to, you got to be able to score. And their numbers, despite the fact that their defense was good enough to win them game 2, they still haven't really scored. They didn't break 100 in the first game, did they? I can't remember what the final of game 1 was. I mean, it got so out of control. They ended up losing that game. Maybe a tick over.
109-97.
Okay. So, I mean, you scored 97 and 96 on the first 2 games. That number's got to go up. I mean, and look, you'd imagine it will when they get back to Dallas. They accomplished what they needed to accomplish. They switched home court advantage, and most of the time, your role players and your good players are going to be able to, or your role players are going to be able to knock down shots at home. They like the cheers. And so you'll see, probably guys that, Exum and Hardaway, and there'll be guys that step up. Role players are always better at home during the playoffs. And so that number will go up, but 97 to 96 isn't going to get it done throughout the entire series, I can't imagine.
We will see some higher scoring affairs, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the ongoing things that we have talked about on this is I said, I like getting my ass kicked because it's a severe adjustment. And then you come back, and if you got a team worth their salt, they will respond. We talked about it with the Bucks. We talked about it with the Mavs.
Not this next one. That's for sure.
It is the exact opposite. If you get your ass kicked twice, which is exactly what the Suns did, you're in a world of shit. Because, hey, like all those things that I'm talking about, your stars being stars, nope. Did they do a great job on Anthony Edwards? Yep. And you still get mangled? Towns did nothing. Edwards was dog water, and Jaden McDaniels is killing you. Mike Conley has a stretch where
you say dog water.
Dog water.
Was that dog water? Is like a online gaming insult. Dog water. You hear your son say that or something? Who you get that from? Dog water.
I stole it from a video. I heard like those like AI videos that have like the highlights. There's this hilarious NBA version of it that I saw. I wish I could shout it out. I can't remember what it was. I don't know. It's one of those things you see when you're scrolling through Instagram. So I was like, oh, I like that term. Jot that down. Dog water. You use that a lot. You're a big gamer. You use it a lot.
I like there's this streamer I really like, this guy Bobby Poff. He uses the insult, "You're a burger."
A burger.
He calls people burgers.
Okay.
You're a burger.
Fair enough. So, anyways, look, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley, there's a stretch in the game where they scored 18 points. 15 of the 18, Mike Conley either scored or assisted. Your guy, Rudy Gobert,
unbelievable. Hall of Fame performance.
And you know what? And the other thing is this. People are like, obviously they're not able to pull him away from the basket. But then here's the crazy thing. It doesn't even matter if they pull him away. This is what I thought as I was watching the game. It doesn't even matter if they pull him away from the basket. A, he's holding up, to your credit. B, okay, fine. Pull him away from the basket. Who puts pressure on the rim for Phoenix? Nobody. Nobody puts pressure on the rim. It doesn't matter if he wants to stand there or if he wants to go 25 feet away from the basket. You're not doing anything anyway.
And even if you did, on the backside is Cat or McDaniels or Edwards. They have size and tough, hard-nosed guys who are going to be helping around the basket. And with Rudy in that game, when he was pulled on the perimeter, he defended Beal, he defended Durant,
Booker,
he defended Booker, all one-on-one. And in the 6 possessions he defended them, they went a combined 0 for 4 with 2 turnovers. That's what happened in all of the possessions combined for Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal one-on-one against Rudy Gobert.
And it was like they adjusted and they did make life harder for Anthony Edwards. But when the other guys on your team can step up in the way that the Wolves did, and then on the other
Mike
side.
Mike Conley.
Right.
Big time.
And
second quarter and fourth quarter by him was amazing.
Well, and I even got some tweets from people saying, like, okay, I get it now with Mike Conley. Like, why? People sometimes will look, and especially with a small market, they'll look and they go, why did everybody love him so much? Why is he going to get his number retired there? And like when I say the broken face game, 99% of all NBA fans don't know. 100% of Memphis Grizzlies fans know. The guy literally had a broken face in a mask on the road, game 2 in Golden State, and damn near didn't miss a shot. Like, this guy is a bona fide gamer. Like, that's when he became legendary. Like, that night where it was like, oh my God, you can't be more built for it than this dude. So
I'm pulling
I
up
love
the game log
oh
right
my
now.
God.
That was 2018.
So
what
in
year
game,
is that? 2015, 12, way long ago.
The guy got
2015, yeah.
9 years ago, got his face broken by CJ McCollum in the Portland series. He's in a hospital bed. Nobody in his family wants him to come back and play.
Missed 3 games. He missed games 4 and 5 against Portland, missed game 1 against the Warriors, and then game 2.
Game 1, Nick Calathis, how about that one, who ended up going and having a great career in Greece, started game 1 in place of Mike Conley and had 0 points.
0 points on 0 for 4. That's what he did that night.
Right.
And then Mike Conley in game 2 came out 22 points on 8 of 12, 3 assists, 1 turnover. He's a plus 7 in the game.
With
the Grizzlies
a
won the game by
broken
7.
face.
Yeah, with the mask on and everything. Pretty amazing.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And so, like, now here 9 years later, God, I love him. You know I love Mike Conley.
Yeah.
And he really loves this team. I saw him. I caught up with him about 2.5 weeks ago, right at the end of the season, whenever they retired Marc Gasol's jersey. Conley flew in for it. And I got to catch up with him.
He did that.
Yeah.
It's amazing he did that.
And they had a game in L.A. the next night against the Lakers, a game in which they won, a big game for them, when they were still fighting for that 1 seed. But he really likes this team. And, they even said on the broadcast that he went in there and told that locker room, do this for me. I don't have that long. Like, you guys have got forever. I don't have forever. Like, let's do this. Like, you know what I mean? Let's make this run. And then to see him, Ant's obviously getting all this attention, but he's playing as a playmaker. He's a mature player, but much more mature. And I think going through those first couple playoff series, his first couple years, really helped that. Seeing Conley step up like that, McDaniel step up like that, I was enamored. The Wolves were something to behold. And the Suns they are just an absolute pile of crap. I mean, for you to come out after you're big, you adjust and you do a good job on Edwards for game number 2, but you get your ass lit up everywhere else. And Brad Beal's your leading shot taker. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Brad Beal, 6 for 17. Kevin Durant, 6 for 15. Devin Booker, 6 for 13. What is happening? What even is that? How is that possible? That's game 2? After you got drilled in game 1? Oh, yeah. If I was a Suns fan, I'd be down in the dumps. I really would. How did we come out and, leading in? I got Devin Booker and friggin' Kevin Durant, and the leading field goal taker is Brad Beal? Come on.
They are the bleak future Suns right now, Chris.
Brother.
That's the sad part about it. And you got to give credit to Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yep.
Those guys are defending their asses off in this series primarily against Durant and Booker. And so Beal is often going against Anthony Edwards. I think that's why, Edwards is a good defender. He's not at the level of Alexander-Walker or McDaniels. So the Suns are seeing it as probably exploiting the weakest player and the strongest offensive player to try to wear him down. But it doesn't make a difference. You still need to find a way to get KD going. You have to find a way to get Booker going. And if those guys don't, the series will be over pretty quickly. That's the scary part.
It's almost like I want to go back and watch what the hell those regular season games were, because this is one of those, sometimes the teams matched up during the regular season and we saw it, and it did truly inform that it's just a bad matchup for that team. And that's what you and I were both led down the road to believe. I think most people were led down the road to believe, hey, sometimes you could just get a bad matchup. And the Suns were a bad matchup for the T-Wolves based on everything that happened during the regular season when those two teams played. The Suns were the absolute best team in the league at scoring on the T-Wolves. And now we get to the playoffs, and they cannot score. They can't do anything. And it's like, we just went through this about a week ago, right? Where it was like the Pelicans. Pelicans had like dominated the Kings this year. Then they played in the play-in, and it's like, oh, well, we should have paid attention. They played each other during the regular season, and the Pelicans beat them over and over again. Like, bad matchup. It's a bad matchup. For whatever reason, the way these two teams match up, it's a bad matchup. And so we kind of thought the Suns were bringing the goods to the table, but they are just getting roasted. Do you think there's any chance this becomes like a long series? That it can just flip when they're in Phoenix?
I don't know. I don't know. I think with Minnesota, I did look back at the regular season matchups, and it was a little different then. Like, instead of McDaniels being primarily on Durant, they had him primarily on Devin Booker. Conley was primarily defending. I'm sorry. Let me correct that. They had Edwards primarily defending Kevin Durant. So, like, there's a little bit of differences there, whereas Edwards now is defending Beal, and it was primarily Conley defending Beal during the regular season. So, like, there's some tweaks there in how they've matched up. But also the big change for the Minnesota side of things is they're switching a lot more on ball and off ball. On ball, they're still not a primary switching team. They are switching more, not more than they did against Phoenix during the season, more than they did really in general against anybody. They were one of the least switch heavy teams in the entire league, but they're also switching a lot off ball too. And so I think with Minnesota before the series, you and I talked about, what does Chris Finch have up his sleeve? Apparently this was it. It was more switching. And I think for the Wolves, that does change the way in which you kind of assess how they match up against the Suns, and it has discombobulated the entire Phoenix Suns offense. The Minnesota Timberwolves just look like a hungrier, team as a collective unit. And maybe that changes in front of Suns fans at home for Phoenix, but I don't know, man. I don't have a lot of faith in the Suns right now. And I regret picking them in the series. It's just those regular season matchups look so bad for Minnesota.
I know.
They look so terrible for Minnesota.
Like, that was the bad matchup, right?
Yes,
like
even the Wolves fans in my life were like, we got the worst possible matchup we could have asked for. This sucks. We might actually be a first round upset. Like, even they were like that. It really is so good for Minnesota right now. So good. And we'll see how the series continues. You can't help but wonder what they're going to look like next round against Denver.
Mm-hmm.
If it is Denver, Minnesota, indeed, in the second round, you kind of wonder, in the Tim Conley Bowl, he puts together the Nuggets, he puts together the Timberwolves, if they also have something up their sleeve for that matchup too.
I mean, look,
against Denver.
They won a game against Denver, which is as much as, I guess Phoenix won 2. Phoenix won 2, Miami won 1. And Minnesota was the other one that got a win, right? Yeah, because the Lakers got swept. Because I remember the Nuggets were 16-4 last year on their way to the title. So, and they were pretty competitive. Minnesota was pretty competitive in that series. You know what I mean? It wasn't
and they're different, and they're a much better team this year.
No question. Obviously, you got a year more of Anthony Edwards and a year of those guys playing together. They got Conley late.
And Gobert is healthy. Gobert is, tip-top shape right now.
Absolutely. And obviously they've got the 6th man of the year in Naz Reid. Congrats to him, by the way. And their bench is fantastic. I mean, between Naz and Naw, they got some real pop that comes off their bench.
Did you see how close that 6-man vote was?
Yes, like 2 votes, wasn't it? 2?
Oh my God.
Who'd you vote for?
Naz Reid.
You did?
Naz Reid 1, Malik Monk 2, and then Norman Powell number 3. That was my ballot.
And that's what it went, right?
I think so, yeah.
I know sure, Monk. Yeah. I know it was Reed and Monk. They're at the very top. Wow. So you did vote.
I couldn't believe how close it was. That was crazy. Like the NBA, when they announced it, said it was the closest 6th man of the year vote in history. Oh, it was Bobby Portis who got 3rd.
Oh, okay.
So I had Powell. He was 16 points behind Portis for 3rd place, but Naz Reid had 45 first place votes, 39 second place, 10 third place. Malik Monk had 43 first place, an identical 39 second place, and identical 10 third place votes. So it was the 2 first place votes that made a difference in favor of Naz Reid. That's crazy.
Naz Reid needs to call everybody that voted for him. Have you ever heard those old stories about he's now in the media? He's actually on the broadcast the other night. Jamal Crawford.
Oh yeah.
No, Jamal Crawford. 3 of my buddies that were voters got personal phone calls from Jamal Crawford.
Oh wow.
After he won 6th Man of the Year, he went out of his way and found out. So in this case, it would be 45 voters, and found out who the 45 people that voted for me were. And he called each one of them individually and thanked them for voting for him. It's a true story. I know 3 dudes Jamal Crawford called personally while he was in the league after he won 6th Man of the Year.
I'm looking up the amount of calls he had to make.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Right, so he's won 6th Man of the Year 3 times. Okay, his first time winning it.
Okay,
he had 110 first place votes.
Wow.
His second time winning it, 57. His third time winning it, 51.
Wow, that's
a
crazy.
lot of phone calls.
That's a true story. Jamal Crawford, because obviously, look, some nerdy mustard stained media guy is like, what? Jamal Crawford's calling my phone? Like Jamal, and I'm talking about people that Jamal Crawford had no idea who they were. Like he didn't have any kind of relationship with them.
It's no wonder why he shot below 40% in the playoffs, because he was too busy on the phone.
He was too busy on the phone calling everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a bag though. All right, let's get to
that's such a cheap shot. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry, Jamal Crawford.
Dare you.
Doing a good job on the broadcast.
You're talking about him like he's Drew Holiday. Speaking of, the Celtics lost to the Heat. 23 threes for the Miami Heat. I have no idea what the F the Celtics are doing in this game. Allowing Tyler Hero to turn into Steve Nash, and
crazy.
Like the fact that the Heat don't even have anybody that's like Scary Terry's out too. So it's like they're going to really just let these guys operate as point guards without any pressure on them. And then you would see, times where Al Horford is like dropping in coverage and just allowing another wide open 3. And it's like, I get the whole playing by the numbers. The basketball game is a math game, but that's now the 4th time Miami has done the same thing to them, which is shooting a percentage from 3 that leaves us all going, oh, what the hell? They can't keep that up. Even at halftime last night, if I'm being fair, I'm like, Jesus, they just shot the cover off the ball. They're obviously spamming the game. They're trying to take a million threes, and they just shot the cover off the ball. And after that late Jaylen Brown run, they're still down 3. And you can't keep shooting like this. Come out in the second half, spam up the game, and they're just taking practice threes. Haywood Highsmith, Caleb Martin, obviously Hero, and that was just gross if you're a Celtics fan, beyond gross. And
I totally agreed with what Bill Simmons tweeted out earlier today. He said, he framed it as Kristaps Porzingis had a bad game in game 2. If Miami does that again, he'll torch them. The real problem, and this is where I completely agree with Bill, Boston's defensive strategy was awful. They have Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and didn't pressure or hound a team with 0 point guards. Miami got whatever the F they wanted. It wasn't, they made threes. They were way too comfortable. I think that is spot on.
Of course it is.
That was my whole thought while watching the game. I'm like, you're not pressuring Hero or Duncan Robinson when he brings the ball up the floor. It just felt like Boston wasn't utilizing the pieces that they have with Drew Holiday and Derek White specifically. And I think if you're Missoula, and if Miami feels comfortable again in a game 3 at home, now tied 1-1, you need to tell those guys, go be pit bulls. get in their face. Don't make it easy on freaking Tyler Hero to look like Steve Nash, as you said. To me, that's the number one thing above all else for Boston was their defensive strategy. It wasn't just a hot shooting night. This is a trend.
Well, and Kev, it's not unlike what the Heat did. The Heat know they go in and they say, these guys, they want to pace and space and they want to pop this ball around and they want to 3-point you to death. So what are we going to do? We're going to say, all right, you want to drive on us, drive on us. And instead of Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, and honestly, all the other guys, they're the only two that they would get the ball maybe at the elbow and then they would go straight to the basket. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's Tatum took the one and just turned the corner and dunked. They just said, we're not going to let you shoot threes. If you want to drive on us, drive on us. And we're just going to try to help. But on the other end, they never looked up and said, hey, Jaime Jaquez, you want to try to drive on Jaylen Brown? Then drive on Jaylen Brown. Good luck. But what you're not going to do is just stand out here and take a friggin' three. You don't get to do that. There was the one where Tyler Hero, he pulls up for three, and you look and, there's a screen. Somebody sets a high screen. Al Horford's down and, drop. It's what do you think Tyler Hero's going to meet you at the rim or something? It was just crazy. And it's happened before. They walked into all manner of threes last year, playing that same way, and they're so outmanned that they have to win strategy-wise. And they did. And, and then there's lazy stuff. I mean, there's the one, just simple stuff. Duncan Robinson should not just be able to strip the ball from Jaylen Brown at the top of the key. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a consummate Spoelstra Heat team with their backs against the wall, going back to what we talked about, got drilled in game one. Got drilled so bad, and that was so non-competitive that you and I did our podcast that night and said, we don't even have anything to say. This is just sad. And we need to apologize to Spoelstra and the Miami Heat because after game one, and it may just turn out to be that way through the rest of the series, I would imagine it's more likely than not. But at least for one night, they certainly deserve the respect that we did not give them because it was a hellacious effort to get a win on the road in Boston. I never thought that could happen.
I didn't either. I thought it would be a complete sweep in the game. And I think for Miami, you said it, they turned them into an isolation team.
Yep.
And that's one way in which the Celtics offense has not been nearly as potent as it has been in most games. They've had 8 games this regular season and playoffs combined in which they've had over 30 isolations in a single game. They're now 4-4 in those games. So 500 when they have over 30 isolations. And one of those games was during the regular season against the Heat. The Celtics won that game back in February against Miami by 4 points. I think Miami probably saw a window to win in that game, an opportunity to win. And that game, they also didn't have Jimmy Butler during the regular season. And they're probably all thinking we need to continue to turn them into an ISO team because Tatum and Brown have not proven to be elite efficiency isolation players in endgame situations and fourth quarters during the season or in the playoffs. And so that's got to be the formula for the Heat on defense. And a big part of that, Bam Adebayo, who was tremendous in that game. Everybody on the Heat was, but Bam specifically on both ends was outstanding. But the Heat have a formula, and I'm not picking them to win the series still. Boston's talent should still win out unless Jimmy Butler makes a miraculous return for the Heat side of things. But this is the formula that the Heat are showing that another team down the line against Boston could potentially exploit and take them down.
Well, and it's fascinating, too, because it's the anatomy of the worst team winning, which is hit a ton of threes, which they did, and then down the stretch, just keep not giving them life. So because they think we're the better team, we'll crank it up when we have to. And the Heat just hit every timely shot. If it got to 4, they extended it to 7. If it got to 7, they extended it to 10. If it got back down to 6, they went down and hit a bucket and got it back to 8. And it was just over and over again, hitting the timely shots, because you just figure, all right, at some point, this is going to regress to the mean. These guys are not going to shoot at this rate forever. And they just never stopped shooting that rate. And that would be fine, except it happened 3 times last year when they played each other in the East Finals. That's the 4th time they've shot over 50% against Boston. So at some point, it's not a miracle.
It's a trend.
It's something you're doing that's allowing this to take place, right? I'd imagine the Celtics respond in pretty serious fashion, but who knows? They're hard to trust after that dud.
Well, the one thing that's become pretty clear about the Celtics, and it was clear all year, if it's Denver versus Boston in the finals, Boston is not going to win that series. It's probably a sweep. Maybe they win in 5, but I just don't think this Boston team has enough of the elite talent level against Denver. I just think Denver is just a unstoppable force, and the Celtics just don't have enough to get over them if that's the matchup in the finals. And we'll see if it gets to that point.
Yeah, it's a month away, and look, how much has already been dictated by injury, Kevin? You have no idea.
We don't know.
We just don't know.
For sure.
Right? And you never wish injury on any of these teams, but most of these series are being dictated by injury in one way or the
good
other.
Health. Yes.
Right? Last one, Thunder's Pels. Okay, so this one falls into the first game was close. Both teams say, okay, here's why we struggled. And my God, did the Thunder figure out how to make life easier for their teams. And it's one of those where if you're the Pelicans, you're going to kick yourself literally forever for not getting game 1, because that's the one where the young team was bullied. The young team was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and making uncharacteristic mistakes. They settled in. You could tell immediately. By the time that first quarter was over, I was like, oh, this is a truck stick. Because they ended the quarter, like they started out and it was like Valanciunas. And it's like, he starts out like 11 points, 5 for 7. I'm like, oh my God, they're turning this guy into friggin' Wilt Chamberlain because they don't have anybody down there except Chet. He's kind of by his lonesome. And Valanciunas is just like a Mack truck down there. Then they played the rest of that quarter out. They go on this 28-3 run, or 23-8 run, hit 7 threes, score 8 points off turnovers, were easily the more aggressive team flying around. And no lie, by the end of that first quarter, I was like, I've seen what I need to see, because they super responded. And let me just take a moment to talk about, we're going to get to SGA, who we know is amazing. Bro, I told you earlier in the year how I had seen Chet and how much I fell in love. And you fall in love with him because you see this guy get batted around and he weighs 120 pounds, it looks like, and it makes no difference. Valanciunas is beating his ass down there to begin that game. He's all they've got. There ain't nobody, there's no cavalry to call. Yo, this dude was so aggressive, so there for it. Then by the second quarter, Valanciunas is 1 for 3, one of which Chet spikes. I'm like, oh, hell. Like, then on the other end, pulling up for threes, like, he's just there for it. He conducts himself like a guy that's 280 pounds and is a bully. Like, he fights and fights and fights. And God dang it, I love him. And the Pelicans need to, they need to get a heart check after that, because you're not the better team. So you have to win all of the hustle stuff. You've got to win rebounds by 1 million like you did in game 1. They lost rebounding. You've got to win the turnover battle. They lost the turnover battle, right? All the little stuff, having more assists than turnovers, killing them on the offensive boards, getting second chance opportunities, getting more field goal attempts up so I don't have to shoot as high a percentage. Like all that crap, that's all got to go my way when I'm the worst team. They didn't win any of it, and go look at the stat lines for SGA, Chet, and Jalen. How the hell are all three of them that efficient? That's embarrassing, man. That is embarrassing.
Do you agree with me now after I said after game one that, I don't think the series is going to go deep?
Well, seeing as New Orleans has scored 92 points in both the games, I don't feel great about it being. I mean, look, how competitive can you be if you're scoring 92?
Has Oklahoma City swayed you at all in believing they can make a deep run?
I still think that there is. I still think that there are teams that can make their life extremely difficult. I actually thought New Orleans could make their life much more difficult than they did. They let that thing become an all-star game. That was embarrassing. Why the F is Herb Jones not guarding SGA? I went and charted every shot that SGA took. I went and watched every one of them because he's 13 for 19, Kevin. P.S. 13 for 19. One of them, he just smoked a layup. Like uncontested. Like he just smoked a layup. Okay? So that's luck. Pure, unadulterated luck. One of them was like on a scramble at the end of a shot clock. He has to throw up. And one of them, he got fouled by Ingram, and they didn't call it. Okay? So let's just say those three. That's 3 of the 6 misses in the game. I went and looked at the 13 makes. Here's who he scored on. Murphy, Ingram, McCollum, Herb, Nance, McCollum, Nance, Najee Marshall, Herb, but Herb got screened, so that doesn't really count. He got switched on to McCollum, so McCollum again. Daniels. That's 13 makes. What the F is going on? Like, could you at least try to make him inefficient by using your best defender on him? How is Larry Nance guarding SGA? How is CJ McCollum guarding SGA? Of the misses, the times he actually missed, Herb, Alvarado, Nance, Murphy, and then Ingram twice. Those are the misses. But, I mean, like you saw, that was just, I mean, there's just cooking McCollum. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could score 94 times out of 100 on CJ McCollum. I'm convinced. I think it's virtually 100% last night.
Do you think the Pelicans in that case, I mean, like there's certain instances, like you mentioned, Larry Nance defending SGA. Like he had a 3 on the left wing where he just ISO'd Larry Nance and just splashed it in his face. And that was after the Pelicans switched to screen to have Herb go on Giddey and Nance go on SGA. Maybe the Pelicans, one of the adjustments Willie Green's going to have to make is just not as much switching. You can't be giving up Herb Jones defending SGA. You can't do it. You just can't.
There's some of those possessions. Go watch him. He's guarding Giddey. What the F are we doing? Why?
Yeah, that plays into what Daigneault and Oklahoma City want. They want that. You're giving them what they want. Sometimes teams in the NBA, like there's so much switching now on ball that teams just give it up. They just give it up.
Well, and you also like played into their hands. It's like Nance is going to be guarding SGA. Now who the F is going to rebound? No wonder you lost rebounding. You got your friggin' center guarding their point guard.
Well, this is the tough part with Oklahoma City, though, because when you have Herb defending SGA to start the possession, but then Cason Wallace comes and sets a screen for him with CJ McCollum defending, and SGA goes around that screen and Herb Jones has to fight over, and then CJ McCollum is like he's defending the screener. Like it like sometimes defenses have to switch that by default. And like that's one of the layups probably where SGA is finishing against McCollum because they had no choice but to switch. Like the fact OKC plays so much inverted offense with smaller guys screening for bigger guys, and like everybody screens for everybody on Oklahoma City. They're near the top of the league in off-ball screening and cutting. They're one of the most motion-heavy teams in the entire league. They are so tough to defend because everybody does everything on the floor. That's part of what makes their offense so dynamic. For the Pelicans, it's hard to say, no, we aren't going to switch this screen. It's tough. Like, there's no easy answer because then that opens up something else.
So if you got an elite level defender, at that point, you've got to tell Herb Jones, stay.
You can't give it up.
No.
You can't switch.
We're not switching this. You're staying home. Like, you got to get by him. End of story. You're getting by the screener. Because
you can't let him loose.
No, we're not handing him off. And you saw they didn't do anything to make anybody uncomfortable. And the whole mode of operation that they could possibly win with is making the other team uncomfortable. End of story. Yes. They have to drag that game into the mud. They have to get more field goal attempts. They have to have more assists than turnovers. And they have to destroy them on both backboards.
Ultimately, they don't have a shot, okay? Like, they just don't have a shot. Like, after game one, I wasn't convinced.
Well, of course they don't now.
They don't. They didn't have a shot after game one either. Like all due respect to the Pelicans, you don't have your best player as Zion Williamson. You need your best player to take down this awesome 57-win team in Oklahoma City. They have a chance to make a really, really deep run here. I don't think they'd get through Denver, but I think they can get through everybody else in the Western Conference. OKC's that good already. They are that good already.
So in game 3, you would be unsurprised to know the lower seed has a winning record. Since 1984, it's a winning record if you go back home. Like, that's usually the one people get, right? It's a winning record. But even if you're the lower seed and you're down 0-2, if you win game 3, history has told us you have a 12% chance of winning the series. I was kind of surprised by that.
That low? Wow.
If you win game 3 and 4, and you're the lower seed, down 0-2, 25%. Still, only 25% if you tie it up at 2-2. Now, in fairness, it's been done 27 times. 6 of the 27 have happened in the last 3 years, including the Bucks going down 0-2 to the Nets and winning. The 2001 Bucks did it twice. They were down 0-2 to the Nets and came back and won. And then they were down 0-2 to the Suns and won 4 straight in the finals, no less. So it has been done, but it's hard if you're the lower seeded team for sure.
It will be done again.
Yeah. No, it will. I just don't think, and you don't think it's going to be the Pelicans that do it.
It won't be.
No.
They don't have Zion. Simple as that. They don't have their best player.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of The Mismatch. Thank you to our executive producer, Jesse Lopez, as always. And Kevin, we'll talk to you on Monday night.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Enjoy your weekend.